The night it all began, Michael wasn't supposed to be there. He had promised himself he would never go near Hollow Street again, not after what he'd heard about the abandoned house at the very end of it. But curiosity, as it often does, clawed at his resolve until he gave in. The locals whispered about the house like it was alive. Some said they heard footsteps on nights when the moon was hidden. Others swore they had seen lights flickering in its windows, though the electricity had been cut years ago. But the strangest rumor of all was that anyone who stepped inside never stayed the same again. Michael didn't believe in ghosts. He was the kind of man who needed evidence, not stories. Yet that night, walking down Hollow Street with only the dim glow of a dying street lamp to guide him, he felt something crawling beneath his skin, a gnawing unease. The house stood at the corner, a black silhouette against a darker sky. Its roof sagged in the middle like it was bowing under secrets too heavy to carry. Still, he pushed open the rusted iron gate. It screeched in protest, the sound cutting through the silence like a knife. He stepped inside. The front door was half-rotten, hanging loosely on one hinge. He nudged it with his shoulder and it swung open, revealing a wide hall drowned in dust and shadows. His flashlight beam cut across broken furniture and shattered glass. The air smelled of mold, but underneath it lingered something metallic, something like rust or blood. Michael told himself it was only his imagination. He needed a reason to laugh at the stories, to prove them wrong. So he decided he would explore every room, record what he saw, and leave by midnight. But as the minutes passed, he realized the house wasn't just empty. It watched him. Every creak of the floorboards behind him made him spin around. Every flutter of curtains from a draft made his heart stumble. His flashlight flickered once, twice, before steadying again. He told himself it was old batteries. Nothing more. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness around him was breathing. He found the first oddity upstairs. In what looked like an old child's bedroom, the walls were covered in drawings, messy scribbles all in black crayon. At first glance, they looked like stick figures, but on closer inspection, each drawing showed the same thing. A tall figure with no face. The faceless man. Michael's throat went dry. He remembered hearing that phrase in passing, whispered by children on the street. They said the house belonged to him, that the faceless man chose who was allowed to leave. Michael shook his head. Nonsense. Just stories. Yet he couldn't ignore how fresh some of the crayon strokes looked, like someone had drawn them recently. He left the room, trying to calm the thunder in his chest, but as he stepped into the hallway, he froze. There were footsteps behind him, slow, heavy, deliberate. He whipped around, flashlight darting across the shadows. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Still, the footsteps didn't stop. They echoed, as though someone invisible was following him at a distance. Michael's breaths came short and sharp. His instincts screamed at him to run, to get out, but something kept him there. Maybe pride, maybe fear that leaving would mean admitting the house had won. So instead, he moved deeper, toward the staircase leading to the basement. The wooden steps groaned under his weight. The air grew colder as he descended, each breath turning to fog. The basement smelled stronger, copper and rot, thick enough to sting his eyes. When he reached the bottom, his flashlight beam revealed a sight that made his stomach twist. The walls were covered in photographs, hundreds of them, nailed into the stone. Each photo showed a person standing outside the very house Michael was in. Some were smiling, some nervous, some curious. But every photo had one thing in common. In the background, just barely visible, was the same faceless man. Michael's knees weakened. His flashlight slipped, clattering against the floor. As he scrambled to grab it, he heard something new. A whisper. It came from the corner of the basement, low and rasping. At first he thought it was just the wind, but then it formed words. Words that made his blood freeze. Michael. His name. He staggered back, swinging the light toward the sound. The beam landed on the corner. At first there was nothing, then slowly something stepped forward. It was tall. Too tall. Shoulders brushing the ceiling, its body impossibly thin. Where its face should have been was only smooth, pale skin. Michael's scream caught in his throat. He dropped the flashlight, again, and the basement plunged into darkness. Footsteps, coming closer. He scrambled for the stairs, his hands clawing at the wooden rail. Something brushed his shoulder, ice-cold fingers grazing his skin. He lunged upward, tripping and crashing against the steps, but somehow he kept moving until he burst into the hallway again. The house groaned around him. Doors slammed shut one by one, as if the house itself was trapping him inside. Michael sprinted toward the front door. It was still hanging loose on its hinge, the night beyond it only a few feet away. He threw himself at it, and froze. The door was no longer open. It was sealed shut, as though it had never been broken. Behind him, the footsteps grew louder. Michael pounded the door with his fists, screaming until his throat burned. He turned, desperate, searching for another escape. His flashlight flickered back to life, where it had rolled across the floor. In its glow, he saw the walls. New photographs had appeared, and in every one he was there. Standing outside the house. Smiling. The footsteps stopped right behind him. The air turned heavy, pressing on his chest. Slowly, Michael turned, and the faceless man was waiting. The next morning, Hollow Street was quiet as always. Children walked past the abandoned house on their way to school, whispering the stories they'd heard 100 times. One boy stopped, pointing to the iron gate. "Look," he said. Nailed to the wood was a new photograph. It showed a man standing outside the house. His smile looked forced, his eyes wide with terror. And though the boy couldn't explain why, he felt sure the man in the photo was still inside, waiting.